Israeli forces have stormed the Kamal Adwan hospital in northern Gaza, forcing 350 people out, including all the patients and medical staff. The president of Germany, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, announced Friday the closure of the Bundestag, the lower house of parliament, ahead of February's snap elections. And the government of India decreed 7 days of national mourning for the death of former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Israeli forces stormed the Kamal Adwan hospital in northern Gaza, forcing 350 people out, including all the patients and medical staff. Authorities are reporting that around 50 people have been killed in this process, including 5 medical staff, as a result of an Israeli airstrike on a building near the hospital. Israel has ordered the evacuation of the hospital, endangering not only the staff but the nearly 75 patients who remained hospitalized. In the last weeks, the attacks against this hospital, the most important in the area, have been constant, and the Gaza authorities had denounced an ethnic cleansing operation in the north of the Palestinian enclave. In Israel, at least 18 people were injured as they ran to take shelter from several Yemeni missiles early Friday morning. The Zionist Defense Forces claim to have intercepted the missile at around 3 a.m. local time. Hours later, the Magen David Adams Service, in charge of medical emergencies in Israel, confirmed the number of people wounded. As a consequence, the Ben Gurion airport, the most important in the country, temporarily suspended its operations. The strike comes hours after Israel bombed Yemen in an attack that nearly killed the president of the World Health Organization, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, who was on a mission there. Military expert Andrei Marachuk reported Friday that Russian troops crossed over the Volga River to prepare a new offensive in northeastern Kharkov, Ukraine. Marachuk specified that this advance generated a positive trend as they are making progress within the city downtown. The incursion attached great importance for future military operations as they managed to take over almost half of the village. The expert further noted that Ukraine sent its military forces to stop the advance. However, the Russian military successfully held their positions and destroyed several enemy strongholds. On Friday, South Korea's opposition-controlled National Assembly voted to oust acting President Han Duck-soo. The Democratic Party initiated the motion just 2 weeks after the Prime Minister assumed the role following the impeachment of President Yoon Suk-yeol, who is facing rebellion charges related to a controversial martial law declaration. Opposition lawmakers accused Han of failing to appoint judges to the Constitutional Court, a critical step for addressing Yoon's impeachment process, and claimed he had acted in support of Yoon during the political crisis.
I announce that Prime Minister Han Duck-soo's impeachment motion has passed. Out of the 192 lawmakers who voted, 192 voted to impeach.
In Mozambique, steady clashes between inmates and security forces led to 21 deaths in the last 24 hours as a result of a wave of violence following elections. The National Police Chief, Bernardino Rafael, briefed that a confrontation between escaped convicts and security forces brought about the death toll of 33 inmates out of the 6,000 fugitives from the Maputo prison, while other 15 were injured. In this regard, both the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Moussa Faki Mahamat, and the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres expressed their concern for the escalation of violence in the country. And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates and more. We'll be right back, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The President of Germany, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, announced Friday the closure of the Bundestag, the lower house of parliament, ahead of February's snap elections. Precisely, the electoral process was called after Chancellor Olaf Scholz lost a vote of confidence in that lower house on December 16th. Lawmakers of both the ruling Social Democratic Party, SPD, and the conservative opposition Christian Democratic Union, CDU, then set February 23rd as the election date, 6 months ahead of schedule. The next German government will have to decide how to deal with immigration and boosting their economy, among other challenges.
Liebe Mitbürgerinnen und Mitbürger,
Dear fellow citizens, I have decided today to dissolve the 20th German Bundestag and to schedule new elections for the 23rd of February next year. A letter to this effect has just been handed over to the President of the German Bundestag.
In Panama, the canal celebrates 25 years in the hands of the country, but it continues to be overshadowed in a nation that is the fourth most unequal in the world and now faces the imperialist threat of the United States to conquer it again. Our colleague Reha Chadinamani with the details.
When the Panamanians recovered the canal in 2000, the waterway ceased to be a U.S. military asset and became an enterprise at the service of world trade, connecting 1,920 ports, 180 maritime routes, and serving 170 countries. And although the canal generates billions of dollars a year, these benefits seem imperceptible to the majority of the population.
But history did not end up making the most collective use possible of the assets that were reverted. It turns out that here, after the invasion, once the military regime was suppressed, the democracy of those at the top organized things in such a way that those reverted goods passed into the hands of the oligarchy, and $30 billion went to the great robbery of that century.
The milestone comes with a bittersweet taste. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's onslaught on recovering the canal, citing alleged Chinese control and high tariffs, has brought to the fore debates on the background and remaining forms of interventionism after the reversion.
The canal is problematically involved with a treaty called the Canal Neutrality Treaty, which is not legal, is not in accordance with international law, and is not convenient for Panama. On top of that, it turns out that the reverted areas are in the hands of the new North Americans, in quotation marks, the new white people, and not in the hands of the Panamanian people.
But we have to disassociate ourselves from that treaty, and that should be the government's position to start talking about it. We cannot accept that every time they want they threaten us because we are a small nation.
After the signing of the Torrijos-Carter treaties in 1977, the U.S. Congress unilaterally introduced at least 6 amendments before ratifying it in 1979, the Concini Amendment and the church and number reservations being the most controversial and interventionist in tenor.
We continue to be seen by the United States as their position to take care of their backyard in South America, and that is what Donald Trump is referring to, in the face of the possibility of a global conflict, to put us as a military objective of their enemies.
The Mulino government has been cautious in its responses to Trump, whose statements come as a bucket of cold water in the face of the accommodating attitude that has characterized all post-invasion Panamanian governments. Trump replaced current Ambassador Mari Carmen Aponte with Kevin Marino Cabrera, a Miami-Dade County Commissioner in Florida, an active Republican member and businessman, which signals a 180-degree turn in relations between the two countries, with control of the canal now the central focus.
Para teleSUR desde Ciudad de Panamá, Reca Chandiramani.
Also in this context, following the U.S. President-elect's claim that China had illegal influence over the Panama Canal, the Asian nation's foreign ministry stressed it respects the Latin America's country's sovereignty over the waterway.
I also noticed that Panama's President Mulino pointed out that the Panama Canal is not directly or indirectly controlled by any major power. From China's side, we will continue to respect Panama's sovereignty over the canal and recognize the canal as a permanently neutral international waterway.
The Chinese government has sanctioned 7 U.S. companies following Washington's recent approval of a multi-millionaire military aid package to Taiwan, which the Asian nation states infringes China's sovereignty and territory.
In accordance with the relevant provisions of the anti-foreign sanctions law of the People's Republic of China, the Chinese side has decided to take countermeasures against 7 U.S. military-industrial enterprises and relevant senior executives. China urges the United States to abide by the One China principle and the provisions of the 3 joint communiques of China and the U.S., especially the August 17 communique, to immediately stop arming Taiwan in any way, to look at China's development and China-U.S. relations in an objective and rational manner, to refrain from implementing the negative China-related provisions of the relevant bills, and to stop adopting wrongful words and actions that jeopardize China's interests.
In the United States, weeks after President-elect Donald Trump signaled Tom Homan to be in charge of managing immigration policies, the former police officer has announced he'll detain foreign families starting on January 20, 2025. Baptized by the GOP as the border czar, Homan assured Thursday on an interview to a U.S. outlet that he is planning to detain adults with their minors. The politician added that authorities won't mind if children are born in the United States. They will be detained regardless and later deported. Moreover, the immigration official detailed that parents will have to relinquish custody of their children to leave them in the U.S., otherwise their minors will be deported with them. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The Public Prosecutor's Office of Venezuela has issued a statement informing the arrest of an Argentinian gendarm linked to terrorist actions in the Bolivarian nation. The communique states that Mr. Nahuel Agustin Gallo has been arrested for having attempted to enter the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela irregularly, hiding his real criminal plan under the guise of a sentimental visit. It follows by explaining, said citizen is under investigation for his connection to a group of people who tried to carry out a series of destabilizing and terrorist actions from our territory, and with the support of international ultra-right-wing groups. The accused is at the disposal of the judge based on the provisions of our Constitution and national laws. Furthermore, the official communication stresses that the statements and actions made by the Argentine government using the relatives of the accused, as well as the judicial resolution taken by the Federal Chamber of Mendoza, make clear the complicity of the authorities of that nation in the subversive plans that seek to attack by any means the Venezuelan state and its legitimate institutions. In its closing remarks, the communique states, this prosecutor's office, as well as all the public powers, we stand firm in the supreme duty to preserve and defend peace, sovereignty, and the principle of self-determination of the peoples as fundamental pillars on which our republic is built. In Haiti, the Presidential Transitional Council dismissed the Minister of Public Health and Population, Saint-Lothe Blema, following the attack perpetrated last Thursday by the criminal group Living Together against the State University Hospital. The government officials who gave this information did so on the condition of anonymity due to the tense situation of violence. They indicated that the Minister of Justice, Patrick Pellissier, will take over as the new Minister of Health on a provisional basis. This attack on the hospital was one of the worst ever recorded, killing 2 journalists and a police officer when members of the coalition of criminal groups came in shooting at those on the premises. In Ecuador, more families denounced forced disappearances of their children and adolescents. The indignation caused by the forced disappearance of 3 teenagers and a child who were detained by a military patrol in Guayaquil has prompted the emergence of more reports of similar cases. Just as happened with Steven, Saul, Ismael and Josue, 2 mothers, Sandra Arteaga and Janeth Escobar, have denounced a similar case. Their children have been missing since December 6th, 2 days before the ones in Guayaquil.
We are the mothers of the boys, 3 missing. I ask you to help me to share this because they are children, 3 minors, 2 sons, and my son-in-law. This happened in Orense de Guarecoa, in the Hacienda Fortaleza. The military came in to do raids and took 6 children. Of those 6 children, my 2 children and my son-in-law are included. Since those days, we have no communication. We don't know where they are, nothing, no trace of them.
The Argentinian government, led by Javier Milei, set the lowest minimum wage in the past 20 years. The resolution stipulates a pay raise for minimum wages of 9.3% to be paid every month from December 2024 to March 2025. This salary increase covers up to only 60.9% of the basic food basket. In this regard, the spokesperson of Milei's executive stated that the rise is planned to be revoked in the near future. In this context, experts from the Study and Training Institute of Buenos Aires deemed that the resolution imposed what constitutes the lowest minimum salary recorded in the country in 2 decades.
Having a minimum wage is a conceptual error. I have already explained the issue many times on conferences, since, for example, if there are people willing to work for less than such minimum wage, the law system does not allow you to hire them, since you cannot pay them less than this minimum living wage.
The National Assembly of Nicaragua approved on Thursday the law for the administration of the monetary and financial system aimed at establishing a regulatory framework. Legislators considered that the regulation meets what the Constitution sets forth regarding the accountability of the state in boosting the comprehensive development of the nation. In this motion intends to stipulate that monetary and financial policies correspond to national goals such as poverty reduction, increased productivity and economic growth. Thus, the monetary and financial system will guarantee better results through the coordinated work of the institutions involved in the area. The Peruvian Congress is investigating former official Jorge Torres Saravia, suspected of running an alleged prostitution ring with the legislature. Torres, who previously headed the Legal and Constitutional Office and is linked to the right-wing Alianza para el Progreso party, is accused of exploiting young women to provide sexual services to lawmakers in exchange for political favors. The investigation intensified following the murder of Andrea Vidal, a former employee who was reportedly involved in recruiting women for the operation. As public outrage grows over this scandal, Torres has denied any wrongdoing, asserting that hiring practices were managed by human resources. In Bolivia, authorities issued an orange alert for the flooding of the Acre River in the Amazonian city of Cobija in the north of the country. Authorities argued that the alert intended to warn the population and minimize the risk of possible overflow. Since the beginning of 2024, the north of Bolivia has been suffering the worst floods in the last 10 years due to the overwhelming flow of the Acre River, whose waters rose from 1.5 to 17 meters in a week, an upsurge attributed to the deforestation of the Amazon and illegal gold mining operations being carried out along its waters. The government of India decreed 7 days of national mourning for the death of former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. In this context, several authorities joined the mourning as a sign of respect for the leader's death, with the current Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressing his deep sorrow in the middle of the state funeral. During the mourning period, the flag is flown at half-mast at national level, and official celebrations are suspended until next Wednesday, January 1st. Manmohan Singh consolidated bilateral relations and pursued cooperation and friendship with several countries of the region and the world. The Venezuelan government issued a communique to offer their sincere condolences to the Republic of India for the death of former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. The Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela stated, "We deeply regret the passing away of Manmohan Singh, former Prime Minister of the Republic of India, who was a recognized creator and promoter of the economic reforms that significantly transformed the socio-economic panorama of his nation." The communique added, during his lifetime, Singh left an indelible legacy who gained momentum as a visionary leader by pursuing economic policies that not only boosted the breakthrough and modernization of India, but they also strengthened the ties of South-South cooperation, opening opportunities for a fairer and more united exchange among developing nations. And we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.